Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Shenanigans Show. As you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, we are going to start a new series called We Listen and We Don't Judge. And this video specifically, as you can tell, is bookish / reading confessions. And that's probably what this series will mostly focus on. I'll probably throw in a crochet one or two, or a knitting one, or just like some other stuff. But I think this series is mostly going to focus on like the bookish aspect of stuff. And this video was inspired by a video from Love Bliss, which I've linked down below in the description. And I'm also going to link the two things that I'll be looking at, one of which is a Reddit thread, and then the other one is just like a little article. So let's see, what are some ones that I can think of just to start off the video? I talked about it before, but I kind of hate, I hate how most tropes are used in the romance genre. I don't actually hate the tropes themselves, I just hate how they're used in a lot of recent romance books. So I steer clear of romance because of that. I steer clear of romance books when romance is the main genre. Like if it's romance fantasy, or so romantasy, where romance takes the driver's seat and then fantasy takes the passenger seat, or if it's like romance history where romance takes the driver's seat, history takes the passenger. So I steer clear of romance when it's in the driver's seat, when it's the main genre, because of the tropes. Let's see, what else can I think of? I have re-gifted books that were given to me as gifts. I don't think this one's a huge deal. Like sometimes it just is what it is. I've gotten rid of books that were gifted to me. I've given them away. I've donated them. I've sold them. So for me, it's not a huge deal. Like for me, when I'm re-gifting a book given to me, or I give it away, or I try to sell it, usually my criteria is that I try to, at the very least, read it and finish it before I re-gift it or give it away or sell it. So that's usually my criteria. And those are the only two that I can think of right now. I'll try to have one or two of my own at the end of the video before wrapping up. So to get into this video, I'm going to look at the Little Infinite link first, the article. So Bookish Confessions. I only read fantasy if there is romance. Thanks to the popularity of romantasy, a whole new genre has opened up. Dragons and fae often adventures in some mystical and magical world isn't exactly what I call page turning. I need that enemies to lovers trope, that will they won't they vibe, the undeniable tension between the main characters. Add in a helping of romance and I'll happily join the adventure. So, like I was saying, with me, I don't need romance. It's the weird thing for me because I totally respect if someone needs romance in their books. I totally respect that. I understand that. And I understand why it can be a form of escapism for many people, and why it's so important for culture today to understand that it's okay to have romance and it's okay for women to be participating in that. Totally respect that, totally understand that, and I encourage it. It's just, for me, I can't do it, like I said, because of the tropes, and because I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, but for me, no book lately has been a true enemies to lovers book. And a large part of that is because usually what I've noticed in a lot of books published recently is that if you take a heteronormative relationship, so FMC and MMC, female main character and male main character, where it's obvious they're going to be the love interests. And usually it's only one person hating the other character, usually the FMC hating the MMC. And it's only for like a very brief amount of time, and then maybe like 1 to 3 chapters. And then for the rest of the book, they pretend to hate them. And then by the end of it, they're in love, or like they're openly in love. So it's like the first 1 to 3 chapters where they really dislike this person and hate them maybe, and then the next 4 to however many chapters they're pretending to still hate them, and then but actually are in love with them, and then by the end it's like openly in love. So usually that's what the FMC goes through, and then the MMC will pretend to hate the FMC, but in actuality he's loved her all along. And for me, for an enemies to lovers trope to be a genuine enemies to lovers trope, there needs to be genuine hatred on both sides. It can't be like something where the MMC reveals, oh yeah, I've loved you this entire time. No, he cannot have loved her the entire fucking time of the book, but was just pretending to hate her because he thought she hated him. And also too, a lot of times I do think that academic rivals, or not academic rivals, I do think rivals to lovers is a subtrope of enemies to lovers, but rivals to lovers can incorporate some where it's like maybe one party doesn't actually hate the other, or it's not a genuine hatred, but there is some tension going on, like they're after the same position, or they're competing in the same thing, or like they're in the same competition, or something along those lines where it's like they're not actual enemies but they're rivals. And a lot of the times what I've noticed is that most books marketed as enemies to lovers are rivals to lovers, which, like I said, is a subtrope of enemies to lovers, but it's not a genuine enemies to lovers. So because there needs to be like a genuine hatred on both sides, like both sides need to actually hate the other person and then slowly start to fall in love with each other. So that's my thing with enemies to lovers. I think it's great if you like enemies to lovers. For me personally, none of them have really been done well. Cliffhangers drive me crazy is another bookish confession from this person. What do you mean, the end? We just got to the good part. How can the book be over? Investing time and emotion into a book, into characters, into a whole story, only for it to end on a to be continued is one of the worst ways to finish a book. Why did I read this far if I wasn't going to know the ending? The trope is even worse when it's part of an ongoing book series. Having to wait months for another installment of the series is one thing. Having to wait to know how a story arc ends is another. I do agree. I think if a book is, sometimes it's kind of easy to tell when a book is going to be part of a series or not. And usually, and if it's not as easy to tell based off of like the book cover or the synopsis, I would go to like the author's website or the author's socials and kind of see if they've posted about first book is out, kind of a deal, because then you kind of know. And if you're interested in it but don't want to end on a cliffhanger, then that's the situation where going to the author's website or socials will help, because then you can kind of see like, okay, this book is the first installment in a series, so maybe I should hold off on picking it up so I don't have to wait months to read the next book. And again, it really depends on the length of the series. So let's say it's like a trilogy. You might want to wait until close to the release of the third one before beginning to read, because then you can read the first and the second one, and hopefully, depending on timing, by the time you read the second one and finish it, the third one will be out, and then you can read it. for me, I don't mind a cliffhanger as long as it's placed well. Because sometimes I can find a cliffhanger to be the best way to end something. But I feel like for cliffhangers to be well done, a lot of other stuff has to be like tied up well. Like something I can think of was the, oh gosh, it's Laini Taylor, the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. What's that trilogy called? Okay. Yes, The Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I don't know what the actual trilogy is called, but it's Daughter of Smoke and Bone, Days of Blood and Starlight, and then Dreams of Dreams of Gods and Monsters. So I remember really liking that one growing up. I don't know if I would like it again, which is why I've hesitated to pick it back up. I don't know if I'd still like it. But with that one, a lot of things were wrapped up really nicely, but there was kind of like a cliffhanger with one of the characters specifically, which I kind of didn't like, where it's like you kind of know what happened to him. You kind of know, like, okay, this didn't happen to him. He doesn't get killed. I don't remember the character's name, but I really did not like him. And, like, he doesn't get killed, but you don't know what happens to him. You don't know why he doesn't get killed or why he didn't die. And you don't know what happens to him. And, like, with me, like, I wanted this character to be genuinely dead. I wanted him to die. But I think it worked for him just because he was such a nasty character. Like, I didn't like him. Like, I actually, looking back on it, I actually don't mind that he didn't die, because it's like, hey, like, at least he's not part of their lives anymore. At least he's not affecting them anymore. And I remember even thinking this back after I first read it. Like, I was really annoyed by the fact that he didn't die, but then when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? That's okay. At least I don't have to worry about him again. Now, I didn't read any other of Laini Taylor's books. I don't know how you pronounce her first name. And again, like I said, I don't know if I would enjoy it again or enjoy it as much if I read the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy again. But I remember I first read it in high school, and I had read the first book, and then I borrowed books 2 and 3 from my local library. Or not my local library, my high school library. So that's what that is. And moving on to the next one, my 5-star rating system is mostly based on vibes. Were the characters compelling with exciting relationships? Was the plot engaging with excellent pacing? World building unique? Is the book going to stick with me for years? Influence my life or change the way I think? Probably not. Does it have good vibes? Yes, 5 stars. I've rated books 5 stars that respected book talkers or book reviewers would likely rate as low, fluffy, even frivolous. But did I have fun reading it? 5 stars. Was the main character adorable? 5 stars. Would I recommend it to others with similar tastes? 5 stars. So, like, I agree. A lot of my ratings are based off of vibes, but I also I agree. Like, I think this is perfectly fine going to rating based off of vibes, because, you know, ratings and reviews are so personalized, and yes, reviews can help people with similar tastes figure out if they like something or not, or figure out if they will like it. But ratings and reviews are so personal to a person's unique experience with the book that it's perfectly fine to rate however the fuck you want to rate and review a book. Like I started saying, I do go based off of vibes. With me, I'm a little bit specific, where it's like, if I wasn't vibing with the book as much, I think I've said this in previous videos, it's been a while since I've given a book less than 3 stars, just because even if I didn't vibe with the book, I still try to find things that were good from a book, whether it's the writing, the structure, character relationships, whatever it is. I try to find something that was good about it. And because even if I didn't like a book, someone else might like it. So that's my thing. Next one is books with my favorite tropes are an auto wish list. So I absolutely love a great enemies to lovers romance. I'd probably love a mediocre one too. I enjoy Grumpy Sunshine as well. So when I hear an upcoming release has either of my favorite romance tropes, I automatically add it to my wish list. I can always read reviews or check out the author later. So I think this is perfectly fine to do. I don't mind this one. Just because it's like, you know what you like, and you know stuff that you like, whether it's tropes, structures, plot devices, plot points, writing styles, you know what you like. So I think it's perfectly fine to be adding stuff just based off of tropes. I don't like, however, how the marketing for books has become solely about tropes, just because one, like other booktubers and book talkers have said, bookish social media creators have said, oftentimes the trope can be like a massive spoiler for any part of a book. And I do think that that's a little bit of an issue, because so many people are like, oh no, I don't want to give spoilers away, but if you're giving the tropes away, then you're giving a spoiler. So that's like my big issue with it, where it's like, okay, maybe don't give tropes away unless someone asks for the tropes. Like, I understand the marketing strategy for marketing books as their tropes, and it gets more people to buy, but at the same time, it does kind of bother me a little bit, because it's like, in today's society, so many people are like, oh my gosh, no spoilers, don't give away spoilers, don't give away spoilers, don't give away spoilers. And then you're giving away the spoilers by mentioning the tropes. So that's my whole spiel on that. Now, I don't mind it. Personally, the trope isn't the main seller for me. Usually for me it's author or genre, but sometimes the trope helps. But again, like, I usually don't like a lot of romance tropes, how they're done recently in today's time frame. So that's just my thing. And then the last one from Little Infinite is, I judge books by their covers. Admit it, you do too. The design and artwork of a book cover is a big part of a publisher's marketing strategy. It has got to be intriguing, eye-catching, and magnetic enough for someone to pick up the book. For me, if the cover is colorful, has dark and light contrasts or jewel tones, I'm likely to pick it up. But if the cover has photos, realistic images of people, or looks too much like a Harlequin romance novel, it won't matter how good the story is, I'm probably not going to add it to my shelf. Don't even get me started on sprayed edges, they are my weakness. So I agree that a book is a major part of the publishing strategy, their marketing strategy. And I actually did a video last month in February. I think it was earlier in February, like the first week, where the title of it is Why the Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover Argument is Obsolete for Books. I have that video linked down below in the description. But basically, in that video, I talked, like the title suggests for that video, I talked about how that argument, don't judge a book by its cover, is obsolete for books, because, like this person says, it's the publishing and marketing, it's a publisher's one of the biggest marketing tools for a publisher, and it's also why so many books are the blank of blank and blank, and it's also why so many fantasy covers look exactly the same, or so many romance covers look exactly the same, because they see how people pick up books that look a certain way, and they see a lot of people buying books with certain covers, so they're hoping to bank on that. And if you see a book that kind of has a similar cover to a book you really loved, you're more likely to pick that one up. So that's part of the publishing marketing strategy. So yes, I agree. I judge books by their covers too. It's why, for example, when with the Disney Twisted Tales, you have one or two of the characters in some form of the cover of the specific Disney Twisted Tale that it relates back to, of the specific movie that it relates back to. Or, like with Almost There, you see a silhouette of Tiana, or you'll see a silhouette of Vasily in the trees. Or Merida, or what's it called? Fate Be Changed. You'll see a silhouette of Merida, or you'll see the silhouette of the bear. So it's that kind of a thing where it's like, it's a callback to the original movies, and if you like Princess and the Frog, or Brave, or Cinderella, and you see a cover that's alluding back to that movie, you're more likely to pick it up. So it's part of marketing strategy. So that is all for the Little Infinite link. I'm going to go over the Reddit. I'm going to go over a couple. And this post is from a few years ago, but I think a lot of these apply. And we're going to see what overlaps, what doesn't overlap, and we're just going to go from there. Also, I apologize. I know I keep pausing. I have to keep stepping away. So, this person, the original post, says, reading confessions. What are your reading confessions? Something you've rarely admitted and are at least somewhat ashamed about. I have two. One, years ago, I kept books on my shelf just to appear to be well read. I read maybe 2 to 5 books a year, but kept books like Catch-22 on my shelf to make people think I had read them. I also recommended books to people that I hadn't read. Since 2017, I've averaged about 45 books a year, and I've worked through most of these books that had sat on my shelf. I think that one's fine. I think we all do it to some extent, where we have books on our shelves to appear like we're more well read, to make it seem like we like a variety of different books. I think we've all done that at some point, and I've done it too. What I'm trying to do with my shelves lately is just keep it focused on books that I enjoy, authors that I enjoy, books that I've loved, because part of it, like I've talked about on this channel before, this is my only bookshelf. I only have one. I do have a 360 rotating bookshelf, but right now I do not have the space for it. And the one that I have was a little bit flimsy, not a big deal. It worked. It works for what it is, you know, but I just don't have the space for it. So we all do it at some point. But for me at least, since this is my only bookshelf, I really try to curate what goes onto it and what physical books I have because of the limited space that I have. And I know I could put books elsewhere. It's just, again, the limited space for putting books, because I have a lot of like knickknacks that go up and like other little knickknack decorations that go up. So the second one for this person, the first time I read a book, the first time I read a book, I do very little analysis. I'm mainly reading the surface level story. I don't appreciate the language or writing style unless it's something really apparent. Oh boy. Okay. I was holding back a yawn, so that's why my face did that. And I don't take the time to look for themes and motifs. When I reread a book, I spend most of my time to look for all of these things though. Due to this, I thought The Great Gatsby was crazy overhyped after my first read through. But now, having read it at least 2 more times since, I genuinely believe it is one of the best written books I've come across. I would have to disagree about The Great Gatsby just because I do think it's overhyped. I think to an extent it is worth the hype, but I also think we need to acknowledge that F. Scott Fitzgerald stole that story from his wife, first off. And also, it's just, I do think it's very much overhyped. And I read it a few years ago, and I don't think, personally, I think it's a good book for what it is, I don't think it deserves all of the hype that it got and that it still gets. That's just my opinion now. There's an airplane or a helicopter really close and I got distracted. It was super close. The house shook a little bit. Anyway. Okay, so one person said, I buy books and only read them once. I've never gotten an urge to reread the book. And then someone responded saying, and this is why I go to the library. I feel no compulsion to own a book that I know I won't read again. If I want to read it again, I'll check it out again. I don't need to spend $28 on a book just to let it collect dust on my shelf. I agree with both of these comments. And like I said, like, I understand. Okay, not that I necessarily agree with most of these comments, but I understand where they're coming from. Personally, I do. That airplane or helicopter is still around. What the heck? I don't know if you can hear it, but it's really close. Anyway, like, I do feel a compulsion to reread books. I try to read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings once a year. And there are other books that ideally I would like to read again. I just don't know if I can. But yeah, I think it's perfectly fine to be buying books and reading them once, especially if you enjoyed it. Again, with me, I just can't buy books endlessly because of my limited space. But I also think that the one comment saying that they go to the library, I also understand where they're coming from, because it's like, you know, books can be pretty expensive, and books are expensive, like $15 for a paperback, and then close to $20. Sorry, I realized I had to stretch, and I didn't want to pause. I didn't want to pause and talking just to stretch. Close to $20 plus for a hardcover. That can be expensive, especially when you're constantly buying books. It's why I like having the Barnes & Noble Premium membership, because I can add up with my rewards and then use it for a big purchase, which is what I am personally doing. I don't know, at this point, I am recording this in mid-January, and it's going up like 3rd week of March, and at this point in time, I do not know if I've bought. I don't know if I bought part 2 of Magic Knight Rare, the 25th anniversary edition, but I have it. It's right over here on the edge. I think I've shown it before on my channel, so I'm not going to pull it out. But I don't know at this point in time if I've got part 2 yet or not. But that was why I was saving my rewards from my premium membership for Barnes & Noble, so I could put them towards that, and not put them towards part 2, because it was like 100 with my premium membership. It was like 116, and I think I got up to like I think I got like $65 now dollars in rewards, and that I was able to put that towards. I don't know if I've been able to put that towards part 2 yet or not, but basically that $65 in rewards is going towards part 2, so that then I only have about like 50-ish to spend on the book. I had to turn off my ring light to charge it, but let me rephrase what I just said. I only have to spend 50 on the book because there's about 60 that I already spent that I'm using in my rewards. So yeah, I understand where both are coming from. It's just sometimes you want to buy the book you really loved. So anyway, I do understand where both are coming from. Another person says, I just buy their covers. And then another person says, I've been burned by this so much. Pick a book. I think it's awesome because the cover is gorgeous, and then the book is actually trash. Or I don't want to read a book with a terrible cover, but finally give in because a friend recommended it or something, and I fall in love. And yeah, I still pick up new books at least half the time and don't read up others based on the cover. Another person responded saying, to be fair, what are you supposed to judge a book on before you have even picked it up? Sure, the summary will usually better represent the contents of a book, but you need something to judge before you read the summary. And then another person commented saying, the summary isn't written by the author most of the time, so we readers don't even have that. I've read summaries that were amazing, pick up the book, and then the author could not put two words together. But it also happens the other way around, and the book editorial refuses to change it. I've seen this firsthand, and I can't understand it. So, yeah, I agree. Like I was talking about earlier, book covers are really important to marketing, and that's how they get people to pick up the books and buy the books. So yeah, that's how it works. I'm not going to harp on that one too much. So another person's commenting, 1, I love boring books more than anything with crazy plots and stories like dragons, adventures, heroes, or criminals is hit or miss, but I'll pick up some boring book about just some person over it anytime. For context, Haruki Murakami is one of my favorite authors of all time. 2, I suck at retaining memories a long time after reading a book, even though in the moment I can analyze each page with depth and appreciate themes and writing skill, a while after I read the book, if somewhere were to quote a paragraph when I've read it without context, I don't think I'd pick up on it. Did you? So it's like, I think that one's perfectly, I think both of those are perfectly fine, and with how much, and the second one makes a lot of sense given the day and age we're currently in, with how much information we're getting from social media every minute, every hour, every day, every week, with how much we're getting from social media, TikTok, Twitter, Book Talk, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, other social media apps, the news outlets, with how much information we're getting on a daily basis. Like I was mentioning, even down to the minute, we're not made to be taking in that much information every single minute of every single hour of every single day of every single week, and so on. We're not meant to be taking in that much information. So it's like, with how much our senses are being flooded with that kind of overload of information, yeah, sometimes our books are going to fall to the wayside with what we recall later on. So that one makes sense, and I totally get that. And sometimes that happens with me, not sometimes, a lot of the times that happens with me. There's some books where I can tell you for sure XYZ. Other books I can be like, maybe A, maybe E, you know, that kind of a deal. Now, I'm not going to read too many more comments because there are a lot, but someone here, another comment does say, I still use the library card for my favorite library even though I moved to another library's district. And then a couple of the replies say, people here need to know 2 things. 1, a public librarian's main job is to connect readers with books. We want you to have that access. Please never feel guilty about using the library. 2, use statistics like how many total books do we circulate in a given year. Use statistics help the library to show the funding bodies that we are being used, we are valuable to the community, and we are worth funding. It depends on how you use your local library functions, but most of the time, by using our services, you are helping us. Donations are nice if you really want to help. Write a letter to your local government saying how the library benefits you, or encourage people in your community to vote yes when library funding is on the ballot. And then another person said, I still use my library card from the state to check out audio and ebooks. And honestly, like, February was Library Lovers Month. So honestly, at the end of the day, like, libraries are so essential to our communities that I think whatever way you can support them is the best way to go about it. And sometimes that might seem a little bit weird, or might not understand why people are still supporting another library even though they're not in that library's district or mile radius range. But at the same time, it's like, hey, the library is being used and utilized, and that is the best thing for the libraries, for them to stay open. So I can't think of any other personal confessions. I mentioned my 2 earlier. So I guess another one I'll do is I'll buy a full series before I really know I like it, if I'll like it or not. Usually though, I do like it, and usually when I do this, I'm going based off of like the synopsis and plot lines, because usually I'm only doing this with books that have plot points that I'll like. So usually that doesn't go wrong for me. Sometimes it can and sometimes it has, but usually it hasn't gone wrong for me. So that is the end of this video. Let me know your bookish confessions down below in the comments. This is a safe space. Again, like the title says, we listen and we don't judge. And let me know yours down below in the comments. Like I said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in tomorrow's video.